So obviously, people are wondering what to do in these troubled times of ours. There's so much going on that it's hard to locate ourselves in space and time. So I actually talked about this a while ago in one of my videos, but I wanted to just introduce you to this concept now and sort of try to apply it to what we're dealing with. So there's this decision making framework called OODA loop. OODA is an acronym. It was designed by an Air Force colonel named John Boyd, and the acronym stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. The loop part is going through those phases again and again until the problem has been solved. Now, this was designed for a specific mission. Um, so I'm trying to apply this, perhaps erroneously, to a much larger battlefield than the one it's designed for. But I think, like many of you, I'm still kind of in the orient phase because there's so much observing we still need to be doing. It's not like we observe and then finish observing and then orient ourselves because so many new things keep happening. There are so many people, agencies, systems, institutions that are being impacted, harmed, changed, dismantled, all of it, just with this brutal comprehensiveness that is at times difficult to process, even for those of us who saw it coming. The Trump regime is taking this very destructive stance towards every aspect of what we thought it meant to be American, or at least what some of us thought it meant to be a citizen in a world that values liberal democracy. And it takes a little getting used to because it's not as if it's not as if simply the assaults are unrelenting. It's that the results of them have changed us, perhaps permanently, hopefully not. But under such circumstances, what do we do? And that's something I know I need to talk a lot more about. But I think part of it is just starting where you are. We all need to meet the moment, but again, sort of like observing, orienting, deciding, and acting to everything all at once isn't tenable. And it's also what they want. They want us to feel overwhelmed. They want us to feel hopeless. They want us to feel tired. We can't do that though. So, what we do need to do is find ways to make meaningful strides in the context of where we are right now. Let's dive in. Or not. Let me keep talking about this thing that I was almost done talking with, but I remembered something that I needed to say. I know that's frustrating because there is such a vast array of horrors that the idea of keeping it local, so to speak, probably feels really frustrating, right? But honestly, it is the hardest work, the most important work we can do because one, just for ourselves, it keeps us connected to our communities. And as we've learned over the last 4 to 10 years, depending on how you're counting, isolating ourselves, becoming isolated from our communities, especially if it's purposeful, is extremely damaging to us as human beings. It's damaging to our relationships. It's damaging to our relationship to ourselves and to the world at large. So that's important. Also, Republicans have known this for decades. That is why they have been they have been on this a mission to go after school boards and local legislatures, I should say, because that's how you build things. That's how you build an effective infrastructure that gets you real power at the top. Democrats have not done this, or at least haven't done it well enough. And that's one of the many, I mean, there are many reasons we're here, and I think it's kind of not necessarily helpful in this moment to go through that. We will need to have that assessment at some point. There is a lot of blame to lay, but I think knowing what we can do that is meaningful, both to you and to the people around you, that is part of what we need to build in order to counter what we are currently dealing with, so that, one, we have a plan and we have everything we need in place at the local level. And honestly, it's a way for us to hang on to the idea that there is still hope. And it resides with us, and it resides with how we choose to leverage the power we have as human beings in this world who still believe in everything that makes it possible and important and necessary to be human. Those of us who still believe in things like democracy and fairness and what it is to be a good person doing good things in the world. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this evening's episode of Mary Trump Live. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you. All right, diving in, we have to start with a press conference today that took place at the White House briefing room. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, who is a very good German and knows how to follow orders, no matter how illegal that might be. It'll be interesting to see if that's going to be her defense down the road. Anyway, she too has been attacking the judiciary. She accused judges of acting as quote unquote partisan activists, claiming their rulings are designed to slow down the Trump regime's agenda. Let's watch.
How does a president define a bad judge? Is it just someone who disagrees with him? And is that a dangerous precedent in this case? Because this is a temporary ruling from Judge Boasberg that he could ultimately rule in your favor. Is he setting up a standard here for calling for the impeachment of a judge who may ultimately rule on your side?
No, it has nothing to do with disagreeing with the president on policy. It's with disagreeing with the Constitution and the law. And it's trying to usurp the authority of the executive branch of this country. It's having baseless reasoning for these injunctions, and it's a clear effort by these judges to slow roll this president's agenda.
Okay, it's always very useful to have somebody in that position who doesn't actually know anything, because they're very malleable that way. You know, she'll say whatever she's told to say. Of course, she's always completely wrong. This has been going on for decades, right? The Republicans have always been really good at this. If they don't like what judges have to say, they call them activist judges. And now, I mean, it's getting worse because they're calling for impeachment and well, we'll see. Leavitt was specifically, oh wait, just a quick thing. The White House press corps seems to have woken up, and I'm here for it. Anyway, Leavitt specifically criticized recent court rulings blocking Donald's policies, including deportation measures and his executive order banning transgender individuals from military service. So let's take a look at that.
To point out that the judges in this country are acting erroneously. We have judges who are acting as partisan activists. from the bench. They are trying to dictate policy from the President of the United States. They are trying to clearly slow walk this administration's agenda, and it's unacceptable. As the President said last night, we will continue to comply with these court orders. We will continue to fight these battles in courts, but it's incredibly apparent that there is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly acting as partisan activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's agenda. We will not allow that to happen. And not only are they usurping the will of the president and the chief executive of our country, but they are undermining the will of the American public, tens of millions of Americans who duly elected this president to implement the policies that are coming out of this White House.
Okay, that's just stupid. But I'm also like hung up on this thing. As a person, can I be erroneous? Can I? I don't think I can be erroneous. I try very hard not to be. Just not even sure what that means. Anyway, of course, she's suggesting that the far left is strategically filing cases in certain courts in order to undermine the administration's efforts. I have something to say about that, but let's check out this clip.
Do you think it's a good use of Congress's time and the president's political capital to try to impeach and remove a federal judge, which would take 67 votes you're unlikely to get in the Senate?
Well, look, the president has made it clear that he believes this judge in this case should be impeached. And he has also made it clear that he has great respect for the Chief Justice John Roberts. And it's incumbent upon the Supreme Court to rein in these activist judges. These partisan activists are undermining the judicial branch by doing so. We have co-equal branches of government for a reason, and the president feels very strongly about that.
Okay, I'm sorry. This can't be real. Can it? I mean, everything these people say is exactly the opposite of what's true. And it's very difficult to keep up with. First of all, if you think, there's no such thing as the far left. There's nobody far left who's an elected official. Also, the Democrats have no power anyway. So how exactly are they doing this? And there's no far left. I mean, if there's a far left, it's me. But, that just means that I want people to have health care and stuff, like clean air and water. I know it's horrible, but I'm not an elected official. I could be as crazy and unhinged and far left as I want to be. But it's also absurd. If you're concerned about anybody from any party strategically filing cases in certain courts, may I please introduce you to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals? Okay? Like, seriously, if you are interested in knowing what it's like when people judge shop or venue shop. Don't get me started on Donald's personal pocket judge, Aileen Cannon, or his other personal pocket justice, John Roberts. Leavitt was also asked if Donald himself defied the court order to allow the planes to continue on their route to El Salvador. Watch this.
Deportation flight. So was it the president himself who directed the planes to stay in the air after the judge ordered them to turn back?
The president invoked the Aliens Enemies Act with a proclamation, which then directed the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State to move forward with the plan of action. And as I said yesterday, all of the planes that were subject to the judge's written order took off before the order was submitted in court. I was asked and answered that question multiple times yesterday. Kate, go ahead.
Yeah, and you keep giving the same lie of an answer. They're giving you second and third and fourth and fifth chances. Nope, you are not taking that bait. Although, when asked about specifics and the identities of those arrested and deported, she had this to say.
Back to those deportation flights to El Salvador, can the administration provide any more details on how authorities determined that each of those men were in fact members of a gang? And if the White House can publish images, photos, videos of those men, why can't the administration just release basic information like their identities and names?
We are not going to reveal operational details about a counterterrorism operation, but what I can assure you, as I said on Monday, we have the highest degree of confidence in our ICE agents and our Customs and Border Patrol Patrol agents who have committed their lives to targeting illegal criminals in our country, particularly foreign terrorists, and they had great evidence and indication. They have the highest degree of professionalism, and they were 100% confident in the individuals that were sent home on these flights and in the president's executive authority to do that.
Follow up, I know.
Really? Well, let's assume for the sake of argument that those ICE agents really aren't some private SS. Let's make that assumption. You know what they're not? They're not judges. They don't get to decide these things. That's what due process is for. That's what you guys are destroying. Right? I don't care if ICE is 100% certain that the people that they have arrested and deported are terrorists, because that's not their job. Okay? And if we start doing that, I mean, where do we end? Where does this end? Where does it end? We don't know. Leavitt was also asked if the country should expect more deportation flights in spite of the judge's ruling. Watch this.
Can Americans expect to see those flights sometime soon?
Americans can absolutely expect to see the continuation of the mass deportation campaign that has been successfully led by this president, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and also our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Since you brought up the judges, I would like to point out that the judges in this country are acting erroneously. We have judges who are acting as partisan activists from the bench. They are trying to dictate policy from the President of the United States. They are trying to clearly slow walk this administration's agenda, and it's unacceptable. As the President said last night, we will continue to comply with these court orders. We will continue to fight these battles in courts, but it's incredibly apparent that there is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly acting as partisan activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's agenda. We will not allow that to happen. And not only are they usurping the will of the president and the chief executive of our country, but they are undermining the will of the American public, tens of millions of Americans who duly elected this president to implement the policies that are coming out of this White House.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know, she learned a lot at Nazi school. This is true. Just keep repeating the same lie over and over and over and over and over and over again, and people will start to believe it. It's, again, I hate using this word because she's vile, but it is impressive. She just does not miss a beat. You know, it's funny, when I started on this particular road I'm on right now, one of the first things somebody told me was, don't ask the question you're asked. Sorry, don't answer the question you're asked. Answer the question you wish you'd been asked. Yeah, the difference is I didn't learn that at Nazi school, and she clearly did. I mean, I guess Goebbels has come back from the dead, and he's doing a really good job. But, you know, Donald's also pretty decent teacher when it comes to lying so much that people start to believe his lies. And just let's little context. Donald has been attacking judges for decades. It started in 1973 when Richard Nixon's Justice Department, okay, sued my grandfather for racist rental practices, right? I mean, it was like a slam dunk case. Why? Because my grandfather, the sociopath, was a racist who discriminated against black people and would not rent apartments to them. Okay, what happened? Well, that's around the time Donald met Roy Cohn, and Roy Cohn said, just sue the Justice Department for $100 million. And that's what they did. And guess what? Nothing happened. He's been doing this forever. Disagree with him? You're wrong. Ruled against him? You're an enemy. The difference now, of course, is this is going to have some serious, very serious consequences, because they are going to continue these flights, these illegal, unconstitutional, anti-judicial flights to deport people who may have done nothing. But we don't know. We just have to take ICE's word for it. When asked about providing more specifics regarding Judge Boasberg, Leavitt not only attacked him and his wife, because remember, that's one of Donald's things too, but she's so excited by all of this, she also got her facts wrong. And again, thankfully, because the White House press corps is wide awake now, she got fact checked. Take a look.
And this judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats, and he has consistently shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
You took me right where I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Yeah, let's clear that up, shall we? Funny story. My aunt, which I find alarming in retrospect, was a federal judge. Long story. It's a good story, but it's a long story, so I'm going to keep it short. She was a Republican because basically everybody except me, well, not just me, but mostly everybody in my family was a Republican of my dad's generation, I should say. Anyway, my Aunt Marianne was nominated in 1983 by Ronald Reagan to a seat on the United States District Court in New Jersey. And then she became an activist judge. No, she didn't. In 1999, she was nominated to serve on the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit by Bill Clinton. See how that works? Yeah, she did not become some wild-eyed Democratic activist judge. Trust me, if only she had. Anyway, Leavitt was made to look like a complete idiot because she is one. But she still continued the narrative that Donald has been treated unfairly because, oh my word, nobody has been treated as unfairly as Donald Trump. Watch this.
Well, let me just say something to that effect, Garrett. 67% of all of the injunctions in this century have come against which president? Donald J. Trump. Let me say that again. 60% of the injunctions by partisan activists in the judicial branch have come against President Donald Trump, and 92% of those have been from Democrat-appointed judges. This is a clear, concerted effort by leftists who don't like this president and are trying to impose or slow down his agenda.
Ooh, I'm a leftist now. That sounds scary. Yeah, of course, we don't like his agenda to dismantle American democracy and destroy our country and impoverish people and, undermine the Western Alliance, destroy the Western Alliance, throw Ukraine under the... No, we don't like any of that. We also hate his guts. Sure. But there's another reason, actually, that so many of these injunctions and so many of these cases have been brought against Donald. He's corrupt. He's a criminal. He's a recidivist. And he hates the Constitution, a document he's never read. And he hates America. Above all that, he hates Americans. So it makes sense that the guy who's committing the most crimes, like actual crimes and crimes against the Constitution, would be the guy getting the most injunctions against him, the most rulings against him, and, things like judgments against him. For example, being a business fraud in New York State to the tune of over $500 million, or I'm just pulling this out of the air, being found to be an adjudicated rapist by a jury of his peers. On March 18th, Donald dismissed two Democratic commissioners, Alvaro Bedoya and Rebecca Kelly Slaughter, from the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, challenging the independence of regulatory bodies, which seems to be like one of the things his regime is most interested in doing these days. A White House official confirmed the dismissals, but offered no further comment. The move sparked strong criticism from Democratic senators and antitrust groups, but not a peep from any Republicans, of course. Those two other groups expressed concerns that it aimed to eliminate opposition to large corporations within the agency. Let's see what Leavitt had to say about this.
Thank you. On the FTC, two quick questions. Can you explain the president's thinking in his decision to fire the two Democratic commissioners, especially given that Mark Meadow is on track to be confirmed next week and there would be a Republican majority? My biggest question is why now?
Sure. Because the time was right to let these people go, and the president absolutely has the authority to do it. And they were given ample notice in a letter that I believe your outlet reported on. So it pretty much explains exactly why this administration chose to let those individuals go.
Is the ultimate goal to get this to the Supreme Court to try to overturn the 1935 precedent?
The goal was to let these individuals go. If we have to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court, we certainly will.
The goal is to get it to the Supreme Court because Donald knows that they're in his pocket. Or, I'm sorry, let me clarify. The corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court is in his pocket. See previous mention of personal pocket judges. Justices in this case. Well, Donald is busy fighting against judges who just rule against him because, they're doing their jobs and blaming the deep state for his failure. Wait, you know what? I have a question. If you were in office for 4 years and then continued to lead your party for another 4 after committing insurrection, all sorts of other crimes, and then you got put back into the White House again, who's the deep state? I mean, it's a kind of a serious. I know you can't answer it because I can't hear you. But okay, so he's got all of his minions in charge of all of the agencies. Like he has the worst of the worst. Like people who are just so sycophantic, it's terrifying. Like that Trump derangement syndrome should not be a mental illness, but I think the level of sycophancy we experience on a daily basis from his minions should qualify for something. Who's the deep state? Anyway, Donald can't take responsibility for anything, so he has to create some fictional entity called the deep state to blame for his failure. And his approval rating is taking a serious hit. Although, well, let's take a look, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I think about the polls. The latest polling shows that Americans are losing faith in his leadership. I mean, I can't help myself. I can't wait. It's like, in what universe did any Americans have faith in his leadership at all? Because that is a non-existent thing. But at least the numbers are starting to reflect some disaffection, if you will. So a new YouGov Economist poll, which is one of America's most accurate polling outfits, shows that Donald's approval rating went from March 16th to 18th. The poll shows 50% of Americans disapprove of his job performance compared to 45% approval. I'm sorry, that makes my heart hurt. Yeah, he's underwater, but that could potentially be I've forgotten my statistics. Forgive me. That could just be I got it. It's within the margin of error potentially. I don't know what the sample size is. I don't know what the N is, I don't know how they came to their conclusion. I don't know enough to make that determination, but there is a margin of error. So that doesn't really, it'll bother him, I guess. Nobody's going to show him that poll, so probably not. But I will have to see if it accrues. But I don't know. That to me is not necessarily meaningful at all. But it is a decline, so experts attribute it to the growing frustration over Donald's tariffs, the mass firing of federal workers, and economic concerns, which nobody who voted for him voted for, by the way. And more Americans are shifting blame to him for the country's financial struggles, which is to say, American citizens' financial struggles. The drop in approval raises questions about Donald's strength ahead of key policy battles in the 2026 midterms, where Democrats hope to pick up seats in Congress, if indeed any of us is allowed to vote. Compared to the first Trump administration, Donald's initial approval bump lasted longer this time, which just makes me weep for humanity. But again, polls are now indicating at least some signs of erosion. Oh, here we go. The survey included 1,618 adults. That's not a big number. And underscores a growing divide in public perception as Donald faces increasing scrutiny on multiple fronts. Again, I don't think it's going to get better for him, actually. But another reason I'm skeptical about polls is because so what? Like, let's say his approval rating actually gets down to where it should be. 25% approval, 75% disapproval. And what then? What, he's just going to cry and say, I quit? I mean, he'll probably cry, which would be fun for us. But there's plenty of people around to prop him up and assuage his battered ego. It's not going to change anything, except, I guess, more people will be more aware of how bad things are, and maybe more people will join the movement to stop this insanity. As his approval declines, of course, he's doubling down on his controversial moves because that's what he does. Like, he's psychologically and emotionally incapable of doing anything else. And now, and this is not just because of how damaged he is emotionally, but it's also because he's insane. He's proposing U.S. ownership of Ukraine's power plants. Today, he spoke with President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine to push this idea. I kind of wish I had been able to hear what Zelensky was thinking during this conversation. Before we get into that a little more, I want to take a look at just how the so-called not at all peace deal is going. Watch this.
US President Donald Trump has been on the phone again today, this time with his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky says the conversation with Trump was positive and very substantive, as well as frank. It's a more tepid assessment than that of Trump, who hailed the discussion as fantastic, adding that it significantly helped in efforts to end the war. It comes a day after the US leader's call with President Putin, in which he vowed to stop attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure, a promise that Zelensky says the Russian leader has already broken.
Yeah, well, that's because Vladimir Putin has no respect for Donald Trump, as nobody should. So the call with Zelensky lasted about an hour. They discussed partial ceasefire, air defense systems, including potential U.S. support for Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The White House allegedly rejected Russian demands to halt intelligence sharing. But again, I don't know. We don't have a readout of Donald's call with Putin. All we know is that after making Donald wait like a child, Donald just praised him a lot. And there's still a 30-day ceasefire allegedly that was agreed to and set yesterday. But Putin, ignoring Donald after making wait for like an hour, launched over 120 drones and 6 missiles on Ukrainian infrastructure Tuesday night, contradicting Putin's promise. Wow. Can we call anything Putin says a promise? Probably not. To halt attacks on energy systems. During Donald's call with Zelensky, he also proposed, as I mentioned, that the United States take ownership of Ukraine's power plants as a way to, quote unquote, ensure their security. According to a White House statement from part-time Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Donald claimed that the U.S. could help manage the facilities with its electricity and utility expertise, because apparently that's an American thing. Like fascism. Donald argued that American ownership would be the best protection for Ukraine's energy infrastructure, implying that U.S. control was preferable to relying on Ukrainian management. In other words, Ukraine, if you want us to be your ally, it's conditional. It's transactional, because every single relationship Donald has ever had in his entire miserable fucking life has been transactional. He doesn't have friends. He doesn't have allies. And if he doesn't, neither does the country that he actually was chosen to lead. So Ukraine, you want our help? It's going to cost you. And right now, for reasons I don't completely understand, except maybe this is what Vladimir Putin told him to do, Donald wants to take ownership of Ukraine's electric facilities. All right, see how that works out. Today, a federal judge is questioning Doge's use of armed law enforcement at the United States Institute of Peace. Good. So watch this clip, please.
While President Trump claims to be brokering peace between Russia and Ukraine, his administration and Elon Musk have gutted the U.S. Institute of Peace, an independent agency with the sole mission of brokering and maintaining peace. Doge officials had been trying to enter the agency since last Friday. And yesterday, Trump fired most of the board and sent its new leader into the Washington headquarters of the Institute of Peace with a police escort, sent at the direction of the United States Attorney's Office, which led to a dramatic standoff. George Moose, the fired CEO, vowed legal action.
Today, U.S. District Judge Beryl Howell raised concerns about the involvement of multiple law enforcement agencies in resolving a dispute over the status of the U.S. Institute of Peace. And I have to be honest with you that I found this a bit shocking. Ultimately ruled in Doge's favor. An hour ago, Howell refused to block temporarily the Department of Government Efficiency from taking over, despite concerns over the manner in which it was carried out. And just to be clear, it was carried out because Doge, which has absolutely no jurisdiction, because again, it's a fictional, unconstitutional, illegal agency that was just sort of made up out of whole cloth to give Elon Musk something to do. So this is mystifying to me. And what's even worse is that Doge called in the local DC police force, which also had absolutely no authority to remove people who had a completely legal right to be at their place of work. Howell refused to reinstate the board members or block Doge's access to the Institute, despite ruling that their removal was not conducted lawfully. The lawsuit, filed by 5 removed board members, alleged that Doge personnel, with the help of former security contractor Intercon, unlawfully entered USIP headquarters, expelled staff, and seized control of the facility over which they have absolutely no right at all. Howell pressed why the Trump regime didn't pursue legal means to reshape USIP instead of using force, asking, quote, "What are the lawful ways to act without using the force of guns and threats by Doge?" unquote. Wow, how very gentle and accommodating of the judge. Are you fucking kidding me? I have been told that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. You know, you're told that when you're a kid. Like if you're in a 55 mile an hour zone and you're going 75 miles an hour, you just don't know it. Oh, well, you should have been paying attention. What do you mean? What lawful way would you have acted instead of the unlawful way in which you did act? For which I am giving you a pass, because, you know, everybody is so hard on Doge and Donald, and they just deserve more leeway. I say again, are you fucking kidding me? What is happening? So that's bad. But again, that's what's happening. And it's looking increasingly likely. I mean, we knew this was coming, but it is looking increasingly likely that all of this is going to end up at the Supreme Court. Those guys are going to be busy. And we know at least 2 of them really hate working. They're really good at like spending their time taking bribes and stuff. But working, not so much. By the way, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, they've already made up their minds as to how they're going to rule on all of this anyway. So I guess they don't have to work. They could just, go somewhere really expensive on some rich guy's private plane and go fishing or something. Fed Chair Jerome Powell is weighing in, holding interest rates steady while warning that Donald's tariffs are fueling inflation. Yes. Today he announced that because the tariffs have contributed to recent price increases. Play the clip.
The new administration is in the process of implementing significant policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. It is the net effect of these policy changes that will matter for the economy and for the path of monetary policy. While there have been recent developments in some of these areas, especially trade policy, uncertainty around the changes and their effects on the economic outlook is high.
Powell specifically pointed to Donald's tariffs as a major factor in inflation, which is projected to reach 2.8% by the end of 2025, slightly above previous predictions. Well, and he's just getting started, so who knows? The tariffs have sparked a global trade war with retaliatory measures from Canada, the European Union, and China. It's also triggered significant market instability. The S&P 500 fell by over 10% from its recent high. Despite these challenges, the Fed has adopted a wait-and-see approach, predicting 2 quarter-point rate cuts by the end of this year. The economic outlook, well, the U.S. economy remains stable somehow with steady job growth and low unemployment, but inflation is still above the Fed's 2% target. And Donald has repeatedly pressured the Fed to lower interest rates further. I mean, they're going to have to, because Donald is not going to change his, well, you can't call it strategy, his bizarre obsession with tariffs, especially since our former allies are fighting back, which is only going to make him dig in his little heels and double down and quadruple down. As Donald's policies fuel economic stability, his administration faces another legal blow. Good, this time over its attempt to ban transgender individuals from military service. U.S. District Judge Anna Reyes has blocked the Trump regime's policy attempting to ban transgender individuals from the military, ruling that the policy harmed transgender service members and lacked justification for military readiness.
New tonight, a federal judge has blocked enforcement of President Trump's executive order banning transgender Americans from serving in the military. Judge in Washington, D.C. ruled that Trump's order to exclude transgender troops from military service likely violates their constitutional rights. The judge issued a preliminary injunction requested by attorneys for 6 transgender people who are active duty service members and 2 others who want to join the military. One delayed her order until Friday to give the administration time to appeal.
The ruling came from the Talbot versus Trump lawsuit filed on January 28, 2025 by LGBTQ plus advocacy groups on behalf of 6 active duty transgender soldiers, including Second Lieutenant Nicholas Talbot and Major Erica Vandal. The judge criticized the Pentagon's reliance on conjecture for the policy's justification and compared the exclusion of transgender service members to previous military discrimination against minorities and women, noting that such exclusions historically weakened the military. He said that because that's actually factually accurate. Despite the ruling, the Trump regime is expected to appeal, and Judge Reyes delayed the decision's effect until March 21st, 2025, in order to allow the Department of Justice to request a higher court stay. As of March 2025, 4,240 active duty National Guard and Reserve Service members have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria and are at risk of being separated under the Trump regime's policy. You know, the cruelty is the point. And it's particularly galling, especially given the fact that Donald Trump has never served this country a day in his life. And please don't talk to me about his time in the Oval Office. He served merely himself every single day of that. So his contempt for service and service members, his inability to understand the most, or I should say, the best things about being human, nobility and generosity and honor and, yes, service, makes it quite easy for him to go after those who belong to one of the smallest and most vulnerable populations in this country. So I say again, it's galling that he, of all people, has the power to destroy lives and careers just because he can. And this, of course, is also going to end up at the Supreme Court, and I'm very sorry to say I do not have much hope for that. Elon Musk is claiming he's being bullied. You know, guys, it's not how it works. You would think bullies would understand how bullying works. Anyway, he's alleging a coordinated effort against him after Tesla dealerships were vandalized. In a Fox interview on March 18th, Musk alleged Tesla dealerships were vandalized by the left I think absent any evidence suggesting a coordinated effort to bully and victimize him. Basically, let me pause for a second. I am against any kind of vandalism. I don't care who's doing it. I don't care why you're doing it. Setting a bunch of cars on fire, what does that do exactly? What point does that prove? I mean, we've talked about this before. I don't know who it was. I have no idea who it was. And neither does Elon Musk. But, just like Donald going after judges because they were, in his view, radical left Democrats. Of course, Elon is going to blame the people he's most harming. Well, or is he most harming Democrats? No, he's harming everybody. In fact, particularly people who voted for Donald. Anyway, the point is, don't set shit on fire. Because again, what's your point and who is it hurting? It's probably hurting the person who owns that dealership. And it's also hurting the people who work at that dealership. And if you'll remember, when Tesla started to be a thing, that was, it was an electric car. It was embraced. I'm using a heuristic here, but it was largely embraced by people on the left because it was an environmentally sound thing to purchase. And some people, I don't understand why, but some people thought they were cool looking. And you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think about Tesla or Elon Musk. Like, say you own a Tesla dealership because you voted for Donald and you love Elon Musk. So what? You don't deserve to have your livelihood threatened in that way. If you work there, maybe you just worked there because you needed a job and that was the only job you could get, no matter how you felt. Do you deserve to have like your wages docked because your showroom had to close for a few days? No. So Elon's all upset because he feels like he's being bullied. That's kind of like saying that, somebody's racist against a white person. Give it up. Come on, get over yourself. Although I guess it's probably true that Elon Musk has never done anything harmful to anybody, has he? Musk is being backed by Sean Hannity. I'm not entirely sure that counts for much. Who claimed he's targeted for aligning with Donald and exposing government waste. Well, you're half right. For aligning with Donald, sure, and engaging in a lot of government waste. That makes more sense to me. Musk boasted about $115 billion in government savings, but reports show only $12.6 billion is verifiable, with many fired workers reinstated due to illegal terminations. I want to be, because what's his name? Donald is terrible at the arithmetic. $12.6 billion is much less. It's like almost 10%. It's much less than 115 billion. I'm sure nobody will tell him that. Critics argue that Musk's role in government cuts has led to job losses and growing outrage, making his victim narrative questionable. Well, how about entirely untenable and insulting? Just go away, please. As the Trump regime faces legal pushback, justice looks selective. Yeah, doesn't it just look selective? Charges have been dropped against Proud Boy leader. We got to change the name of that stupid organization. Enrique Tarrio. The seditionist who was serving, I think, 18 years in prison for, sedition, the second most serious crime against the United States of America. But he was pardoned by the actual insurrectionist himself, a traitor to this country, Donald. So what's weird, though, is that after he was released for free, you'd think, oh, wow, new lease on life. I only had to serve the tiniest percentage of my actual time. You think you'd just be happy and, I don't know, maybe try to make the world a better place? I know that's absurd. Sorry. He committed another crime. And he got arrested for it. And he was probably going to be charged for it, except it's Donald's DOJ now. So yeah, the charges were dropped. The whole case was dropped. I should say. Tario was arrested for assault after allegedly swatting a phone from a protester's hand during a demonstration after he was pardoned and released from prison. I think that's like called looking a gift horse in the mouth or something. Take a look at this clip from his February arrest.
Enrique Tario just assaulted me while he's getting arrested. I told you, he doesn't intimidate me. He doesn't intimidate me. He doesn't get to come here and assault people and do whatever the fuck he wants. Fuck you, Enrique. Fuck you, bitch. Fuck you, you bitch. Stay right there. He's not the first one to assault me either. What happened?
Well, I don't really like that word. So I have a better one. If you ever run across or have the great misfortune of running across people like Enrique Tario, just call them little Nazis. Because that's more accurate and less offensive. Today, the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. has decided, as I mentioned, to drop the whole case against Tario. Actually, sorry, he was serving 22 years in prison. He got clemency. Like, I think like that was maybe the first thing Donald did after he didn't put his hand on the Bible because he was pretty sure it was going to burst into flames. I guess somebody gave him a heads up this time. But, you know, still haven't been any lightning bolts, which, well, I know where I stand on that whole issue, but I think it calls some things into question. The U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C., which handles both federal and local cases, dropped the charges before Tario's scheduled hearing in D.C. Superior Court, because that's also what our DOJ is now, at least that part of it. NBC News and News 4 WRC reported that sources within law enforcement confirmed the assault case would not move forward under interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin, who really needs to be disbarred immediately. I don't think he will be, but he needs to be. Okay, a lot of legal stuff, a lot of bad stuff, but, you know, day ending and why and all. So I think we deserve an emotional support moment. Yesterday, we saw an adorable penguin palling around with a beluga whale. They weren't in the same water. Apparently, I thought that that would be nice, and somebody told me that that may maybe not be a good idea. So, okay, but they still bonded through the glass. It's adorable. Anyway, luckily, we can count on you guys because I was worried. I was like, oh wait, am I wishing this penguin harm? I just wanted them to frolic together, like in person. But you know, you guys definitely came to our rescue and reassured us that beluga whales don't eat penguins. To which I say, put them in the tank together and let that friendship blossom. So now that we know that that penguins are safe from beluga whales, I want to visit. I mean, actually, I really do want to visit this place, but I just virtually. Let's visit it. Seriously, this is the thing. Just knowing this is the thing makes me happy. There's a retirement island for penguins in New England. So let's see what they're up to.
The New England Aquarium is taking extra special care of its older African penguins.
Now, the aquarium's penguin colony now has a separate island for 6 penguins that have exceeded their average life expectancy. That's of about 10 to 15 years old, serving as a kind of retirement home. The aquarium said older penguins experience health issues like cataracts, arthritis, foot issues, some of the things humans deal with too. And the island lets staff keep a better eye on the geriatric birds.
It's kind of like an assisted living for animals that are in their older stages of life.
The penguins, they get a special diet of hydrated fish. They receive daily eye drops and foot treatments and even undergo acupuncture and physical therapy. African penguins, though, they are an endangered species, and the aquarium is a partner of an organization that helps restore wild African penguins.
Can I go there? Like, I'm not ready to retire anytime soon. I want to go there, please. That seems restorative. I mean, also just hanging out with penguins who are getting shiatsu and acupuncture. Wow. Sounds like a plan. All right, let's get to your questions and comments. Just saying. 77, thank you as always. That's awesome. Question, French scientist deported for having anti-Donald stuff in his phone. Kind of scary. U.S. becoming a no-go zone. Thoughts? Love from Australia. Well, love from the United States. Yeah, thoughts. That's terrifying. Because, again, where does it stop? Right? I said this a few days ago when the first case, that there were two reasons given for the deportation of the South African ambassador to the United States. One, that he was a race baiter, which is a thing that cannot be possible in a country where the majority of people is white. And secondly, that he hated Donald, to which I said, get in line behind me. So if that becomes the criterion for getting deported, guys, there aren't enough planes. You're just not going to be able to keep up with demand because so many people hate him, including, I don't think this is much of a secret, including many of the people who work with him. So, but yeah, they're going to keep pushing that envelope because who's stopping them? Nobody. Diane, thank you so very much, Diane. Question, is it me or is Caroline Leavitt stop wearing a crucifix? Could it be giving her a rash? No, I think it actually, I mean, I think I saw the day like that late, she was wearing one, later the day she wasn't, and there was like a little burn mark in the shape of a cross on her shirt. So maybe somebody was sending her message. No, I don't know. But yes, I think either it's given her a rash or it keeps bursting into flames. That would be my theory. Yeah, because, well. Champagne hand, thank you very much. Canada in the house. Sorry. Keep it up. Which is to say, keep not buying stuff from America, especially if it comes from red states. Question, sorry. Hi, Mary. Apologies if you discussed it and I missed it. Have you seen Marissa Cubbs' reporting that Donald plans to issue an EO making fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction? What? I have not. You know, that's so stupid and stupid that it doesn't surprise me. Maybe he doesn't understand what WMD means. I think that's the same. He's not great with acronyms. And he probably says the plural as WMDs, which drives me crazy. Wow. Well, we'll check for it because that is craziness. Knucklehead. Wow. Thank you so much. That's very generous of you. Question. What? Oh, it's more like a comment, but thank you. What would we do without your exceptional help? I'm assuming it's rhetorical because I wouldn't know how to answer that question, but thank you. Thank you. A voice of reason during an unreasonable time. Huh. So really pulling that whole reasonable thing off, huh? That's great. I'm glad. It's working. And you're welcome. And thank you again. His Divine Skidoo, thank you very much for that. Comment, pseudo PSA, Skidoo is an old English spelling for shadow. Oh, that's very cool. I like that a lot. Yeah, nice. Regina, thank you very much. That's great. Question, do you think the press is starting to fight back? I hope so. Well, it looks like the White House press corps might be. I'm telling you, I can't wait to talk to our nerd Avenger and my friend Brian Caram about that. Because it is remarkable, and it shouldn't be, of course. That's the way it's supposed to be. But given how poor the White House press corps has been over the last 8 years, it's rather shocking, and it's heartening. I do hope they are able to keep it up. basically. All right, some super stickers to thank. Well, first, let me start here. Loves my dog a lot. Thank you so much for that, as always. It's incredibly kind. Some super stickers. Minnie Mouse, thank you so very much. Kim, thank you. That's great. We appreciate it. SC, thank you very much. And Mickey, thank you as well. That's fantastic. And we so appreciate all of you. All right, that does it for us tonight. So first of all, thank you to everybody watching on YouTube, to our tiny number of people sifting through the rubble of Twitter to find us. Everybody over at Substack and my awesome community over there who's watching the live stream, thank you guys. Really want to get some more crossover going. So if you haven't already checked out my Substack, it's called The Good Nuss. It's free to subscribe. A lot of like-minded people over there, obviously. So check that out. And also to everybody listening to the podcast, we very much appreciate that. To all of you leaving comments and all of the super stickers and people giving us gifts, I promise you we are using every cent of it to build something that we think is important and will be important going forward as we try to figure out how to get through this and through to the other side of this. So seriously, very much appreciated. And also, of course, another way to support us, in addition to becoming a super sticker and gifts, is to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That helps us tremendously to grow, which we really need to do. Also, liking and sharing our videos helps a lot. To our moderators who keep this place somewhere we all want to be, we appreciate that very much. And of course, to my team, my team who is just having to wade through so much horror on a daily basis, and kind of keep me on top of things and keep me from spitting out. Not that I ever do, of course. It is a quite extraordinary thing they do every day. So thank you to them. And that does it. I don't know what day it is. That keeps happening. Oh yeah, it's Wednesday. Huh, right? Wednesday, March 19th. Interesting. I am traveling tomorrow somewhere. So Waj will be hosting the Nerds. That's 12 Eastern. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow night for Mary Trump Live at 7. So sorry, I'll be asleep. No, I won't. 6 p.m. Eastern. There will be no Mary Trump Live on Friday because traveling. But as always, there will be videos dropping during the day. So please continue to check those out. And until we see each other again, most importantly, please take care of yourselves. That we really need to be doing that right now. And of course, stay safe and be kind.